Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Christopher and this is Challenger Tabletop. Today we're going to be doing another painting stream, continuing painting my Genestealer cults for Warhammer 40,000. Yes, I do play other factions, I just happen to have a lot of Genestealer cults on my painting desk, so that's what we're going to continue with today. And today I'm going to be painting a Genestealer cult's icon ward, or acolyte icon ward. And he's basically a banner bearer, and I do have a video, I just have to get it set up here. And we do have a welcome to the newest follower on the page here. I added, what are they called, stream labels of latest follower, subscriber, etc. So far we've just got a few followers, but I may play around with where that's positioned on screen. Oh, and I'm not even using the right camera. Here we are. This is me. Hey, I'm Christopher. I'm a little bit disorganized today and didn't shave just because I'm running late. Had a lot to do. I just ran to the store to get some new doorknobs and fluorescent lights. I was trying to get everything installed and working before the stream, but yep, I've been in a bit of a rush today. In any case, welcome, and let me see if I can queue up a video of the model I'm going to be painting today. That looks like the one. And make sure it's looping. Alright, let's see. Here we go. Alright, this is the Genestealer cult's acolyte icon ward. I have primed him since I took this video, so we do have a bit of a head start. And I added a little bit of sand to the base, but otherwise, this is how he looks. He has 3 arms, one's holding the banner, his right arm has an auto pistol, and I added kind of a bracelet around his arm. And he has a rending claw as well. A little skull and some tank tread on the base. Alright, well, let's get into painting. Got my station set up. Zoom in the video a little bit. And here you can see the model. I've got, he's made from a Delaque Necromunda body. And I guess I gave him a little knife on his belt here. And it's kind of fun, his little bracelet actually can slide up and down his arm. It's kind of free there. Old-fashioned plastic auto pistol. If you've been modeling Warhammer for a long time, you might recognize that piece. Genestealer head. So really quite a kit bash here. The banner is a Space Marine back banner. I made the symbol up at the top here just with a couple of Genestealer cults logos or whatever they're called. A couple of the spikes from the normal icon. So let's get painting. I'm going to slap some gray paint on his face real quick. Got some fresh water. How's everybody doing today? It's been a good day for me. I had the day off, but trying to get a lot done. Made some good food. Went to the store, picked up some groceries. And I'll be working overnight tonight, so that's always fun for me. As long as I can stay off of eBay, not buy a whole bunch more models I don't need. So there we go. I did have a topic to discuss today, kind of a fun one, which is what Space Marine chapter should you pick or should you play? And I'll more or less just be giving you guys my impressions, my opinions, my hot takes on the first founding Space Marine chapters, as well as the Crimson Fists and Black Templars, I suppose, because they're just about as popular as the first founding chapters. So, Space Marines are probably the most popular faction to collect and play in Warhammer 40,000. And it's a course, science fiction miniatures game, painting up a Warhammer model right now. And the Space Marines are sort of the heroic human super soldiers who defend the Imperium against all manner of alien threats. And every once in a while they are used to subdue the populace or something else sort of totalitarian, but for the most part they're the good guys of Warhammer to some extent, as much as there are any. I suppose along with the Imperial Guard. And the Space Marines are divided up between different chapters, each one consisting of approximately 1,000 Space Marines. And the reason for this is that after the Imperial Civil War, called the Horus Heresy, they reduced the size of any one Space Marine chapter so that even if several turned against the Imperium again, they wouldn't have enough power to overcome the rest of the loyal Space Marine chapters. Looks like I had a little piece of grit on my brush. So each Space Marine chapter has about 1,000 Space Marines, and these are of course super soldiers who are augmented by DNA modification to be superior warriors to regular humans. I am, by the way, using Averland Sunset. This is a yellow base paint that really has changed everything for me in terms of painting yellow. Yellow has always been one of the colors that struggles to cover well, and at least the Citadel paint variety. And starting with a base of Averland Sunset has really made it a lot easier to get good results from yellow. It is prone to bubbling like you see here, so I'll just kind of attack it with my brush a bit while it dries to keep those bubbles from drying as you see them. So each Space Marine chapter has its own leader or ruling council or something like that, who are also Space Marines, part of the chapter. Usually a chapter master, with just a few exceptions. And they are divided up among 10 companies, usually the 10th company being the Scout Company, made up of new initiates. And each Space Marine chapter tends to have kind of its own character and flavor and background. And deciding which one you want to paint or collect can be kind of a tough decision if you at least have decided you want to play Space Marines as a starting player, but you haven't decided which style or which flavor of Space Marine. So I thought I'd just start out talking about the most popular or most well-known, most famous Space Marine chapters, which are the first founding chapters. First founding means they were the first ones created. They've been around the longest in the story and the game. And usually they have the most rules support, the most characters, and that kind of thing. There are supposedly thousands or more than 1,000 different Space Marine chapters in the lore. And not all of those are spelled out for us or described for us. We don't even have names for all of them. So they leave the door open for you to create your own Space Marine chapter and simply say, you know, this is one of the thousands that are out there. And Games Workshop Warhammer has always been good about leaving room for you to create your own stories within the world of the game or the galaxy. And that's the reasoning behind letting you create your own Space Marine chapter. Your models, paint them the way you want, and if you want to paint them that's in a way that's different from all the Space Marine chapters we've described, you can make up your own. That's kind of the idea. Alright, well, we got a yellow base on the banner. Yellow is kind of the banner color I use for my Genestealer cult. I call them the Cult of Transcendence. They're located on a fictional moon I made up in my own local campaign setting, the Icarus system. They're located on Transcendence Moon, which they've pretty much taken over the course of 100 years. And that's where they get their name, the Cult of Transcendence. I'm going to go on to paint some gold up on the top of this banner, and I might look around for any other details I might want to pick out in gold. Well, actually, maybe first I'll paint his jacket. I'm thinking I want to go probably gray with a brown wash on his jacket. Let's see if I can get him in focus. There we go. I basically want kind of a brown jacket, but the way I'm going to do it is gray with a brown wash. So it'll have kind of the look of like a real dirty gray that's maybe, you know, clothing that's decades or over 100 years old maybe. Looks like he has some kind of armor plates on his back. We'll pick those out probably in a silver. So let's move on to some gray using my medium brush here, Citadel small base brush. Let's see if I can get that in camera. There you go. One of my favorites. Gonna give the paint a quick shake. So just a quick background on the Space Marine Legions, or chapters. They started out as legions. There were 20 Space Marine Legions in the beginning when the Emperor created them. The Emperor being sort of a immortal ruler of the human race in the setting. Someone mysterious person of great power with psychic powers, who's like an immortal. So the Space Marine, or the Emperor created the Space Marines by sort of genetically engineering them, and he started by creating the 20 Primarchs. These were basically his prototypes, who would be basically immortal, and from their DNA he would create the Space Marine Legions. So the Primarchs were almost like demigods, and the Space Marines created from them were not as large or powerful, but shared their traits and part of their DNA. So by creating the Primarchs to have a variety of characteristics and abilities, he could end up with 20 Space Marine Legions that had different specialties or strengths and abilities. So, of course, after creating the Primarchs, they ended up getting stolen away and scattered across the galaxy, and the Emperor had to go locate them, and as he found them one by one, he placed them in charge of the legions of Space Marines he'd created from their DNA. And the Space Marines kind of looked to the Primarchs like a father almost, or a patriarch, if you will. And so the different personalities and characteristics of the Primarchs are reflected in their Space Marine Legions. And after the Horus Heresy, the Civil War of the Imperium, the Space Marine Legions are broken up into separate chapters, and these are referred to as successor chapters. So basically the two types of Space Marine chapters that there are the first founding chapters, which are the chapters made from the Space Marine Legions after the Civil War, who kept their name, and the successor chapters have different names, but they're made from the same DNA of the original Primarchs and Space Marine chapters. Since half of the Space Marine chapters turned against the Imperium, not all of them remain loyal. Let's see how many we have. How many loyal first founding chapters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that makes sense. It is half of the 18 that we know about. And there are two chapters of Space Marines, or two first founding legions, mixing my terms here. There are two legions of Space Marines that were erased from Imperial records that we know nothing about. and their names and the names of their Primarchs are not officially acknowledged or described in any of the official Games Workshop lore, although there are theories about them. That would be a fun discussion topic for another time. This is a female character, by the way. I notice some breasts here, so I tried to pick sort of a gender-neutral head with a mask over the face. I replaced the original head I had on this model when I noticed that. So there are 9 Space Marine chapters who are first founding chapters that started out as the original legions, and the only real change when they went from being legions to chapters was that they reduced their numbers down to 1,000 Marines, with any additional Marines being separated off into new successor chapters. So most Warhammer players who have been in the hobby for a while could probably list off the 18 founding legions, and we're just going to be talking about the ones who remained loyal, of which there's 9. And we'll go through them in the order of their legion number. The legions were numbered 1 to 20. The ones that disappeared were the 2nd and 11th. And so we're not really going to concern ourselves with those. And so we'll start out by talking about the First Legion. And of course this is, if you can't tell, inspired by, I assume, inspired by the Roman legions, which are so famous among historians. The Roman legions were really world famous in their time, or at least in Europe, and they had their own names and traits and honors, and I assume that's where Games Workshop got the idea for the Space Marine legions having such interesting character, each their own. So the First Legion was the Dark Angels, and that's actually the chapter of Space Marines that I play. And so I have plenty of background on them. I know probably more about them than I do most of the other chapters. And the Primarch of the Dark Angels was Lion El'Jonson. And he was raised on the planet Caliban, where he grew up living in the forest by himself, a forest populated with great monsters. And he was eventually found by the people who lived on Caliban, and he had already become like a great warrior, I think, just living on his own in the wild. And once they found him and brought him back to their settlements, he learned to speak and learned their customs and became civilized, but still something of a ferocious wild warrior at heart. Caliban had a kind of a order of knights who were like the ruling class who would protect the civilians from the monsters that lived in the forest and would battle and hunt the monsters. And under the leadership of Lion El'Jonson, the knightly orders eventually purged all the monsters from the forest of Caliban and brought peace to the planet. And it was around this time that the Emperor arrived and found Lion El'Jonson, and he assumed command of his legion of Space Marines. And many of the knights of the knightly orders of Caliban joined his Space Marine legions and became Dark Angels, including Luther, who was ultimately to betray Lion El'Jonson during the Horus Heresy, And when Lionel Johnson returned to Caliban and his fleet was attacked by Luthor and the Dark Angels on Caliban, they fought their own little civil war, with the planet being bombarded until it eventually broke apart. And while Lionel Johnson and Luthor were engaged in battle on the planet's surface, the planet began to get sucked into the warp, kind of like the alternate hell dimension of the Warhammer universe. And the planet was ripped apart, and Lionel Johnson and Luthor were both wounded. Luthor sort of escaped. Lionel Johnson was recovered but wounded in like a coma, I guess. And the Dark Angels were quite shocked to realize that their own brothers had betrayed them, and perhaps half the Legion had turned to chaos. And they were able to keep this a secret, and have been sort of like hunting down these traitors ever since. Although 10,000 years have passed since the Horus Heresy, Space Marines do live a very long time. They're nearly immortal if they're not killed in battle. And the traitorous fallen Dark Angels who escaped, many of them were sort of scattered across the galaxy through the warp as Caliban was destroyed. Doing some gold now, some Retributor armor base paint on the icon here. But ever since the Horus Heresy, for the last 10,000 years, the Dark Angels have been hunting down the fallen, their fallen brethren, and trying to capture and redeem them or kill them. And meanwhile, the Fallen have been trying to recruit or create more of themselves. And it's believed that now there's actually great armies of Fallen waiting to try to overthrow the Imperium, perhaps. And I haven't read the novels about this, but I have heard players say that actually it might be, there's maybe some hints that the Fallen aren't necessarily bad guys. Some of them might feel like they're actually the ones who are still loyal, and it's the rest of the Dark Angels who have somehow turned traitor. And if you play Dark Angels, you will get a little bit of grief and harassment from other Space Marine players who will half-jokingly call you traitors because of all this. But I like to think that the Dark Angels are in fact perfectly loyal and just about the greatest Space Marine chapter in the Imperium today. They were the First Legion. They often refer to themselves as the First, and among players of Dark Angels, we like to think that they are also the best. Lionel Johnson was a great tactical genius and a great warrior, perhaps even unequaled as a warrior among the other Primarchs. And that's kind of a point of pride for Dark Angels players. Recently in the lore, we've had it announced that Lionel Johnson is in fact alive and recovered from his coma, but he's lurking in the shadowy basements of the Rock, which is this Dark Angels space fortress made from a giant chunk of their destroyed planet Caliban. And supposedly Lionel Johnson is awake, and we're all waiting for him to get a model in the Warhammer game so we can actually play him on the tabletop. But I get the feeling that that's going to be waiting for a novel or a campaign event or something that will reintroduce him. perhaps alongside one of the other lost Primarchs. I like to think that we'll see Leman Russ, the Primarch of the Space Wolves, and Lionel Johnson return together as part of some kind of campaign event. They were always rivals and have come to blows before, and maybe they could rekindle that kind of rivalry between them as part of a new storyline. I guess I'll get into that a little more when I get to Leman Russ. But one of the cool things about playing Dark Angels is that you may be able to see them get their Primarch back in the next few years. We have been waiting a long time. I think they first hinted that he was going to be coming back maybe, I don't know, probably more than 5 years ago. Maybe it's been 10 years that we've been waiting for Lionel Johnson to reappear. So who knows, maybe we'll just keep on waiting another 10 or 15 years before it finally happens, but we do expect it. And that might be one reason to consider playing Dark Angels, is that eventually they may get a Primarch model and character. What drew me to play Dark Angels was the fact that they have green armor, which I thought looked pretty cool, kind of like a forest green. And their elite troops wear white armor. They're Deathwing Terminators. And if you play the current edition of Warhammer 40k, Deathwing Terminators are actually very strong right now. Their special rule means basically any weapon that is trying to wound them has at least a 50% chance to fail, no matter how strong the weapon is. So that's a pretty powerful ability in the game. And I think they just look really cool, a bunch of white Terminators. I suppose they're technically like a bone color, but it's more like an off-white. Alright, I think I'm going to do the staff on his icon, and I'm just going to paint it a silver. Where is that silver? Should be out on the table somewhere. Oh, I have a couple paints that slid to the very back of my desk. Alright, so we've got a base paint here, Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to be using for all the silver on this model. The Dark Angels, so they wear green, their Elite Terminators wear white, and then they also have their Ravenwing fast attack squadrons who wear black, which can look very cool. I always like painting my models wearing black armor. I think it looks great. And the Ravenwing are basically the ones who are tasked with hunting down the Fallen, which are kind of kept secret to most of the brother Space Marines. Only the Deathwing and the Ravenwing know about the Fallen, according to the lore. And Dark Angels have like an inner circle who kind of know the secrets of the chapter. And it's kind of an honor for a brother Space Marine to be promoted to that inner circle. And they're the ones who kind of direct the actions of the chapter and make sure that they're hunting down the Fallen. And let's see, anything else I want to say about the Dark Angels? I've been playing Dark Angels probably since the early 2000s, and I've always had a lot of fun playing them. The fact that other players call them traitors doesn't really bother me. The usual retort is that loyalty is its own reward. We don't need any affection from the other Space Marine players. We're happy to simply do our duty and hunt the Fallen, and that's that. So that's the First Legion, the Dark Angels, the first chapter I wanted to talk about today. And without looking, let's see. No, I can't remember who the... Oh, Second Legion is one of the lost ones. Third Legion was the Emperor's Children. They turned to chaos during the Horus Heresy, so there's no longer an Emperor's Children chapter. They would be a Chaos Warband instead. Oh, I should paint his little bracelet gold. We'll come back to that. The 4th Legion were the Iron Warriors. They also turned to chaos. And they're a very popular chaos chapter. They paint hazard stripes on their armor as kind of their logo. Or what would be the word for it? Like a visual theme, I guess. And I've played quite a few battles against Iron Warriors, actually, including one of the biggest games of 40k I ever played. A 4,000 point game of my Dark Angels versus Iron Warriors. I don't think I won that game, but it was a good one. I did kill the Skull Taker, who's a Chaos Bloodletter hero. Killed him in Overwatch with a couple of my Ravenwing bikers carrying meltaguns. That was a very exciting and memorable moment. Something that was very unlikely to happen, but the dice helped me out. Moving on, the 5th Legion. So again, we've gotten to a Loyalist chapter. The White Scars. And the White Scars are known for their fast attack style. They tend to fight mounted in fast vehicles like bikes and land speeders, and their infantry are usually charging into combat, and their game rules reflect this, letting them what do? Advance and charge or something like that. I have not ever played White Scars, and I have never played against White Scars. One of the things that's kind of cool about them is actually that not a lot of people play them. And anytime you can play a Space Marine chapter that's one of the more rare ones, that's cool because people usually have not played against them and enjoy getting to play against something new. So you will be usually popular with other players if you pick one of the lesser played Space Marine chapters. The White Scars Primarch is named Jaghatai Khan. Did I say that right? Jaghatai. I'm not sure exactly how to say it. Probably because I've never played against them. I've never had someone to ask. Jaghatai Khan? Jaghatai. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Sorry for butchering his name a minute ago. And Jaghatai Khan has kind of like a, and I guess the White Scars in general, have kind of a Mongol theme. I think they're kind of inspired by the Mongol Khan and the Mongol hordes who fought on horseback with archers and had kind of a fast attack style themselves. Genghis Khan, of course, is who I'm trying to think of. So a lot of the Space Marine chapters and Primarchs kind of take their inspiration from real world history. So I really don't know a lot about Jaghatai Khan in terms of his storyline, but I do know that he is one of the Primarchs who also might come back. I believe he was last seen entering the Webway, which is kind of like a pocket dimension created by the Eldar. And I might have heard something about him being captured by Necron or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that he's not confirmed to be dead, and therefore being immortal, we do expect to see him return. And this is kind of a theme with a lot of the Primarchs, that they're supposed to eventually reappear one day, which is awfully convenient for Games Workshop in that it means they can weave them back into the storyline and create a model for them and game rules, and all the players who play White Scars would love to see Jaghatai come back, the Khan. And they do wear white armor, which again I think looks cool, just like it does on the Dark Angel Terminators. The Dark Angels I didn't mention, their inner circle wear white robes, which does give them kind of a monk-like or Order of Knights kind of vibe. I guess kind of like monks. Warrior monks, if you will. Alright, well, let's see. Did I get it all? I should do gold maybe on the butt of the pole there. I would definitely consider playing White Scars if you like the idea of a fast attack army of bikes and speeders. Then I would consider either White Scars or the Dark Angels Ravenwing. Both are very good on the tabletop. Both look amazing. If you paint White Scars, they're going to be white. If you paint Ravenwing, they're going to be black. So that would maybe be the biggest aesthetic difference between them. And also, right now, since Games Workshop has introduced the new, larger Primaris Space Marines, the White Scars actually have one of the strongest of the new Primaris characters. Don't remember his name off the top of my head. But he's a pretty cool model, holding up a severed head. And I have seen people do some cool conversions, replacing the severed head with like a scroll. So he's like, read this. Alright, I think I'm going to now paint some more yellow on the banner. I wonder if I should bother with more base coat or move straight onto a yellow layer paint. Probably the first option, more base coat. Make sure I get a nice solid kind of yellow ochre on here before I move on to the brighter yellow. Could have done this with a bigger brush, but we'll make quick work of it. Unlike the Dark Angels, I believe the White Scars home planet still exists. And it's like a planet with vast plains and steppes, which lends itself to their fast maneuver warfare, I guess, in that there's not a lot of cover to take anywhere. Looks like there I got a little bit of grit or something in the paint. It's never good. Try to avoid that. So that's the White Scars, or at least about as much as I know about them. Just kind of giving you guys the information I know off the top of my head as someone who's been casually playing Warhammer for many years. But I'm not really into the books and lore and stuff. You can find some really great resources for all of this information online. You have wikis that talk about each of the Space Marine chapters that are quite in-depth and give you more background and events and character names. Just trying to give you sort of a little bit of an overview. Casual overview. But maybe it'll be enough to inspire you to look up more about one of the chapters, or maybe pick which one you think would be the most interesting or fun to play. So the White Scars were the 5th Legion. Moving on to the 6th, and one of my favorites, the Space Wolves, the rivals of the Dark Angels. Their Primarch, Leman Russ, has fought a duel against Lionel Johnson, which I do believe Lionel Johnson was the victor of. course, Dark Angel players, I'm sure, love to remind Space Wolf players of that. And Leman Russ is one of the most interesting characters in 40k, I would say. The Space Wolves have what I would call a Viking theme, combined with sort of a wolf and werewolf theme. Gonna see if I can get this little bit of grit off of the banner here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Using my broken X-Acto blade here. Yeah, it looks like I can. It's almost like a piece of dust got into the paint or something. All right. I haven't totally decided what I want to paint on the banner. Probably I'll freehand the Great Devourer, which is the symbol you see here. Maybe I'll do these spikes or tusks underneath the Devourer logos. Planning to do them kind of a white, I guess, with like a sepia wash. So Leman Russ, he's kind of like a, oh, he reminds me of Thor from the Marvel movies. If you've seen those, you can almost just copy paste Thor onto Leman Russ. He likes to drink and have a good time, and he's a ferocious warrior, but also has honor and loves to laugh. All right, looking for white, I guess. And Leman Russ does have kind of a dark side, though, in that he's known as the Emperor's Executioner. And the story there ties back into the Lost Legions. The 2nd and 11th Legion, referred to as the Lost and the Damned. Supposedly, Leman Russ was put in charge of hunting down and purging those Space Marine chapters, which meant him and his, or he and his Space Wolf Space Marines would have been committing fratricide, killing off their fellow legionaries in the first ever case of Legion on Legion warfare, as far as I know. And so this did give Leman Russ kind of a fearful reputation among the Primarchs, because they all knew that if they turned traitor, Leman Russ would be put in charge of hunting them down. And of course this did happen when half the legions turned to chaos in the heresy. So that is kind of cool that these Space Wolves have actually probably wiped out 2 Space Marine legions already. That's kind of a claim to fame that the other Space Marine chapters can't really match. And Leman Russ is also one of the Primarchs who is rumored to eventually return in the future. I believe there's sort of like a prophecy regarding it that says something like, in the time of the Imperium's greatest need, Leman Russ will return. Something like that. And I don't know exactly where he's supposed to be lost. Is he in the warp? Is he somewhere at the edge of the galaxy or beyond the edges of the galaxy? Is he fighting some campaign in the Eye of Terror? I really don't know. I would be curious to hear from a Space Wolf player how much they know about where exactly Leman Russ is. Alright, well there's my white base coat on those tusks. They'll look better once I add some sepia wash. I'll bring out the details a bit more. Oh, I do want to paint white also on the sort of carapace armor of this guy, where he's got his armored plates on his arms, and then probably also on his claws. The Space Wolves are paint their armor a very interesting color. It's like a frosty blue-gray, and as you might guess, their home planet is like an ice world called Fenris. Although there's kind of like a saying there's no wolves on Fenris. I don't really get it. I assume that means that like there's not a lot of native wildlife there. The Space Wolves do fight alongside giant wolves, which is very cool and unique. But does that mean that they don't actually come from their home planet? That wasn't exactly clear to me. But they fight not just alongside wolves, but actually ride them into combat, which is very unique. You don't see really any other Space Marine chapter riding to war on beasts of any kind that I'm aware of, unless it's maybe a real small niche successor chapter I've never heard of or don't know enough about. But of course players do get creative and create their own version of the Space Wolves that do ride something other than wolves, giant wolves. So you will sometimes see players have Space Marines riding on giant lizards or something, and they'll just use the rules from Space Wolves, but not the models, that kind of thing. It's usually just fine in the hobby. And the Space Wolves are, I suppose, the first Space Marine chapter we're going to talk about today that are suffering from a kind of a gene curse. So the Space Marines are created using some DNA from their Primarch, and the Primarchs as babies were scattered across the galaxy through the warp, and supposedly their DNA of some of them was somewhat affected by this experience, including the Space Wolves, and as a result their genetic defect sometimes causes them to develop wolf-like traits, almost to the point of like turning into like werewolves. And we haven't really seen how this would affect Leman Russ, besides he might have had like, you know, big canine fangs or something and been very hairy. But I wonder, you know, if we haven't seen Leman Russ since around the end of the Horus Heresy, or approximately 10,000 years according to the lore of the game, perhaps he's become somewhat werewolf-like himself over this intervening amount of time. And I don't know what that would mean for his model, if we would see him as return as kind of a half-man, half-wolf type character. What I would actually think would be even cooler is to have two models for him. One where he's more human and one where he's more like a werewolf, and have him actually kind of change between the two in the course of the game. Wouldn't that be cool? Like, if he gets wounded down to half health, or maybe reduced to 0 wounds, then he turns into a werewolf and then you have to kill him all over again. Or he gets even stronger. I think that would be neat. And there have been some interesting rules in the past for the rivalry between the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves, where like you sort of fight like a little mini duel between two of your characters before the game if the two fight as allies. Kind of fun. And I have like a friendly respect for the Space Wolves as a Dark Angel player. I don't look down on them or call them dogs or anything like that. Those kind of insults I think would be beneath a Dark Angel. And I would always be happy to fight alongside the Space Wolves. I have actually fought a team game with my Dark Angels and a Space Wolf player, but his army was not exactly like the standard style of Space Wolves. He had painted them in kind of a tiger theme, which was very cool. So they had like tiger stripes on their shoulder pads, I want to say, and on their vehicles. Really, it was an awesome looking army. But he did have a grudge against me by the end of the game because my Dark Angels sort of sat back and used their guns while his guys went charging into combat, somewhat outnumbered by the enemy. He felt like my Dark Angels did not hold up my end of the alliance. Felt like I couldn't be trusted. So always funny when what happens in the game kind of mirrors what happens in the lore. Let's see, anything else I should say about the Leman Russ and the Space Wolves? There is an Imperial Guard battle tank named after Leman Russ, called exactly that, and I believe the story is that it was discovered by the Space Wolves while they were taking over a planet. They found the plans to this ancient tank, and that tank ended up being named after Leman Russ for that reason, and went on to become one of the most successful and battle-tested Imperial tanks. I have some Leman Russ tank models. I used 4 of them for my Genestealer cult. You're normally limited to 3 of any one datasheet or unit in the game, but Leman Russ tanks can generally deploy as a unit of 3 in an Imperial Guard detachment, and you would be allowed to take 3 of those units of 3. And additionally, Imperial Guard can field characters riding in a Leman Russ tank called Tank Commanders. Very popular unit for Imperial Guard. Alright, we're moving on to Screamer Pink now to do the skin of this character. And I think I'll stick to that small base brush I've been using. I think that's about all I have for the Space Wolves. I'll just say that their play style is kind of a jack-of-all-trades style, where they're as good at shooting as most other Space Marine chapters, but also very strong in close combat. So if you want to be strong at fighting and strong at shooting, Space Wolves are a good chapter for you. Also, if you like their Viking theme or the werewolf theme, they have kind of a lot going on. And they also could see their Primarch get a model in the game coming up at some point in the future. I would not be at all surprised if we saw Leman Russ and Jagatai Khan and the Dark Angels Lionel Johnson all come back to the game in the next 10 years or so. Games Workshop really takes their time with these kind of things, so there's no telling how long it might take. I'm going a little heavy on the paint here. I need to be watering it down a bit more. It's a little better. So painting his hands and face, and I would like to go in and paint these little cutouts in his wrist armor as well with this Screamer Pink. I like this color as a sort of alien flesh tone. The Space Wolves also do have some other unique like weapons and stuff, like a frost pistol or something. That's kind of cool. Well, moving on from the Space Wolves, the 7th Legion, the Imperial Fists. They paint their armor yellow, which does make them harder to paint than a lot of other Space Marines. My friend Mortimer, who you guys have been seeing in chat, has been working on an Imperial Fists army now for... He's been playing them for about maybe 6 months or so. It was a new project he started this year with his 3D printer. And they're very fearsome to fight against. Their specialty is bolter weapons and their accuracy with aiming range weapons. And they're also famous for their ability to defend or lay siege to fortifications. So if you like the idea of Space Marines fighting from bunkers and battlements and building giant fortresses, turning whole planets into fortresses, that's kind of the style of the Imperial Fists. And they have more that they're known for, including being the Space Marine chapter in charge of the defense of Terra, which is Earth in the Warhammer 40k setting. And I believe the Imperial Fists also recruit their soldiers from Earth, or from Terra. So that's pretty cool. Makes them certainly unique. I think I want to do his elbows in this pink as well. Why not? And maybe I can get these with this brush. It'd be a little delicate. Yeah, there we go. All right. One of the things that makes the Imperial Fist so strong in the game is that they are able to ignore cover. Really hurts my orcs because my orcs have virtually no armor. Normally when I take wounds on my orcs, I have to roll a 6 on a 6-sided dice to ignore the damage. And the only way to improve that is to place my models in some kind of terrain like a forest or a crater or a ruined building. And if you put them in a crater or ruined building, which would increase their armor save, the Imperial Fists get to ignore that. So if their weapon is subtracting 1 from your armor save, then I'm not even saved on a 6. Which means that their basic line infantry with bolters, or the incredibly powerful Hellstorm bolters, which some units can take, really fire at excellent efficiency and are super scary on the table. And they also have some advantages in terms of destroying enemy vehicles. And they have a very cool Primaris character, Tor Garadon, who has a power fist and a weapon mounted on his shoulder. Alright, there we go. You can see kind of how that's coming along. Might need to do a little bit of cleanup on those arms. Got a little bit out of the lines there. What next? Maybe I'll paint his glove and his shoes. I'm thinking black. So moving on to base paint, Abaddon Black here. We'll zoom out a little bit. So the Imperial Fists, they come from Earth. They're excellent at siege warfare and building defenses. They wear yellow armor. They have excellent aim with bolter weapons. I think their rule is called Bolter Drill, or maybe it was in a previous edition. And as for what units they use, I would say that they're most known for units that use bolt weapons, so I guess that is kind of a focus on maybe line infantry like Primaris Intercessors or Tactical Marines. And also, I suppose they would be a chapter that you would be most likely to see using fortifications, like the awesome Imperial Bastion, or the Hammerfall Bunker, or the new turret weapon fired by a Tech Marine. Can't remember what that's called off the top of my head at this moment. So that probably gives you some ideas about Imperial Fists. I'll just say that their Primarch, Rogel Dorn, was kind of known for his Great Depression and seemed to have some kind of psychological problem, which is somewhat carried into his Space Marine chapter. Maybe it's a gene defect where they will sometimes fall into kind of a depressive state where it's kind of like nothing matters to them and life is of no interest to them, and I wonder if the only break they get from that is fighting in battle, or if there's any relief at all. But yeah, they're prone to some kind of melancholy or something. Which, I don't know. I don't know what I think about that. It's interesting, I guess. And their Primarch, Rogel Dorn, is believed to be dead. His body's never been found, but he was fighting against some Chaos forces and disappeared. And where the battle was happening, they found his severed hand. So I guess that leaves us to wonder, is he alive still somewhere with a robotic hand now, or no hand at all? Or was that the end of him? Did he die there? Which seems to be the implication, is that he's dead. But I don't know. I wonder, I'd be curious to get an Imperial Fist player's opinion on that. Where's Mortimer when I need him? So that's Rogel Dorn and the Imperial Fists. The 8th Legion is the Night Lords, and they're another one that turned to Chaos. They're kind of like a vampire Space Marine Chaos Warband, I guess is how I would describe them. Their Primarch Conrad Kurz, the Night Haunter, is kind of a cool character, and they paint lightning bolts on their dark blue armor and look pretty cool. Decided on gold trim for his coat because the Acolyte Icon Ward is a pretty important character for my Genestealer cults in that he carries the icon of the Great Devourer, and they look upon this icon with great reverence. So I would expect the Acolyte who's in charge of carrying it should have gold trim and fancy dress. So Night Lords were the 8th Legion. Ah, the 9th Legion, the Blood Angels. One of the most cool and popular Space Marine chapters is the Blood Angels. And when you do a popularity poll of the 18 known Primarchs, you will almost always see Sanguinius win the poll, the Primarch of the Blood Angels. Sanguinius was unique among the Primarchs in that he had wings like an angel, and this is assumed to be a genetic mutation that happened when he was cast into the warp as an infant, but it's not known for sure. I wonder if perhaps the Emperor had intentionally given him wings. And sometimes people jokingly call Sanguinius like the Emperor's golden boy, although I think you could also refer to the Custodes that way. But Sanguinius was kind of like the perfect Primarch. He was a unwavering champion of the Emperor. He was popular and adored by not only his own Space Marines, but the other Primarchs. Everyone seemed to like him. He was kind of like the popular kid, and still is among players of the game. And he was a fantastic warrior, perhaps even the greatest among the Primarchs in combat. And Sanguinius is very famous for confronting Horus, the leader of the rebellion of the Horus Heresy, in single combat when Horus and his traitor legions were laying siege to Terra. Sanguinius had the courage to face him in single combat aboard Horus's flagship. And Horus was enhanced, his power was enhanced by the Chaos Gods to the point where he was really probably superior to any of the Primarchs in power. And yet Sanguinius made a great effort to defeat him, and nearly did, I think. But ultimately, Horus slew him, gave him mortal wounds, so that I think Sanguinius was lying, dying, when the Emperor showed up to finish Horus off, supposedly. And it's really quite heroic and tragic way for him to go out. And the fact that their Primarch fought Horus one-on-one is sort of a point of pride among Blood Angels players. And it does kind of tie into their genetic curse, the Black Rage. The Space Marines of the Blood Angels chapter, to this day, 10,000 years later, are prone to see visions of Sanguinius's final battle against Horus. And these visions can be so compelling and all-encompassing that the Space Marine starts to believe he is Sanguinius and he is fighting against Horus. And when this happens, the Blood Angels descend into a, who are afflicted by it, descend into a kind of a battle rage, becoming almost like berserkers. And this Black Rage tends to, I believe, get worse and worse until the Space Marine either dies or dies in battle. And so the Blood Angels paint their armor red, but once they begin to succumb to the Black Rage, they paint their armor black and join a special company called the Death Company. The idea being that at that point they are seeking death in battle before the Black Rage gets much worse. And I have to say, I really love the look of the Death Company Blood Angels. I think they look really cool with black armor, with red trim and red crosses on their shoulder pads, or X's, I mean. They just have a very menacing look. And I also like the red armored Blood Angels, especially when people paint it like a real deep kind of crimson red. And Blood Angels was actually the first Space Marine chapter I wanted to play when I was originally getting into Warhammer back in the 90s as a teenager. I painted up a few Blood Angels. I remember painting a sergeant and some Death Company with jump packs and maybe one other Marine. But back in those days, that was about as much painting as I really had discipline for. And it would be many years before I had a whole army painted, and when I did that, I chose Dark Angels. So I haven't really played Blood Angels much at all, ever. But I had a roommate maybe a couple years ago who started collecting Blood Angels, and so I did get to play at least a couple like small 500-point games against them, and I found them to be very strong in the current edition of the game. They tend to have abilities that let them fight first, which is a super powerful ability in the current meta of the game. Fight first meaning you might charge into them and then they'll hit you before you get to hit them, kind of thing. And that, of course, means that they could kill your charging unit before you get to deal any damage at all, or before you get to swing and deal your full amount of damage. And in general, the Blood Angels are very competent in close combat and rely more on close combat than shooting. So similar to the White Scars, I would say, they're both sort of close combat oriented Space Marine chapters. I'm not getting great coverage from this gold, and I realized why just now. It's not the base paint I normally use. This is Auric gold armor, and I wanted to be using Retributor armor. So let me switch paints here, and this gold I'm painting is going to go on a lot better. Ah yes, now I can see a clear difference in the paints. Generally, base paint is going to have better coverage and is going to be more opaque, and a layer paint is more transparent and will let some of the color beneath it show through. So when you're first trying to put your first layer of paint on and cover up your primer color, the base paints work much better. That's a big improvement. This is going much easier now. Trying to hit all the trim along the edge of this jacket here. And a good way to do that is to kind of hit it with the side of your brush from an angle, so you don't have to rely on your shaky fingers to have perfect aim. You can just kind of let the brush ride along the edge, doing the work for you. There we go. That's starting to look good. So the Blood Angels, they come from the their home planet is the planet Baal, or Baal, spelled B-A-A-L, and it's like a harsh desert planet where the people suffer from the intense radiation of the sun, and there's hardly anything to eat, and the people are all rather barbaric and cruel because of the limited resources. And as a result, the Space Marines who were recruited from that planet are very tough and fierce and strong. Yeah, that's looking good. Looking for more trim that I should be painting here. Ah, around the top of the collar. And maybe while I'm at it, I might do another coat on the icon at the top. So I think Blood Angels are very cool. Their Primarch is definitely dead, although I have kind of heard some rumblings that they might reincarnate Sanguinius at some point in the storyline. So maybe we haven't seen the last of him. And there is actually a character in the Blood Angels whose model you can actually field in the game, who might be something like a reincarnation of Sanguinius. He's called the Sanguinor, and he has wings, I believe. Are they part of his suit, like a jetpack, or does he actually have wings? I'm not exactly clear on that, but he's a very cool model. Unfortunately, he does come from the era before Primaris Space Marines, and the model is a little bit small compared to Primaris and other Space Marines we have today. In general, the way that the Space Marine models have gotten gradually larger and larger as time goes by is called scale creep. And I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, I'm kind of happy that they've made Space Marines bigger, and Primaris Space Marines I think are a really nice size. But scale creep does tend to mean that older models tend to be a little small, and as a result, people have sometimes made their own versions of older models using the pieces from newer Marines. So you could do something like make a new Sanguinor model out of Primaris Space Marine bits and just use the rules from the Sanguinor for him. Even though it's an alternate model, that's looked upon as just fine, I think, by most people these days. Pretty tricky painting this little loose, what do you call that, a bangle? No, what's the word? Bracelet. Probably getting gold all over everything here, including my fingers. But I really like Sanguinius. I like the Blood Angels. I think they look cool. I like how they play on the tabletop. They are a lot of people's favorite chapter. They're a popular chapter to play, and I would definitely recommend them to a new player. I think you can't go wrong with Blood Angels. And they are the 9th Legion. The 10th Legion is another loyalist legion, the Iron Hands. And the Iron Hands thing is that their motto is "the flesh is weak." And so they tend to replace their fleshy arms and legs and stuff with robotic limbs as they get injured. And they do also suffer from kind of a gene curse where they become kind of repelled. They experience revulsion at their own biological parts and have a desire to become machines. It's very unusual and interesting to me. And as far as like modeling opportunities, it's cool because who doesn't love a Space Marine with a robotic arm or leg? Just looks super cool, I think. All right, gonna be painting the silver bits on this guy's outfit here, where it looks like he has armor plates. And the Iron Hands paint their armor black. And I believe, unlike most of the other chapters, instead of a chapter master leading them, I think they have like a ruling council. And in terms of their tactics, they pride themselves on having a regular and routine method of strategy, almost like an unthinking, unfeeling machine, and are never influenced by their emotions or feelings. And that's interesting. I don't think it's a super compelling reason to play them, but maybe someone who feels like they're a super logical person would think that was cool. And their chapter master is called, their Primarch is named Ferrus Manus, which I'm pretty sure is just Latin for Iron Hand. So it's kind of goofy that they are the Iron Hands led by Iron Hand. But so be it. Sanguinius is kind of like sanguine or blood. A lot of the Jangatai Khan is kind of like Genghis Khan. A lot of the Primarchs, it's kind of obvious where they got their name from, and it's a little bit goofy, including Ferrus Manus. But at the same time, it's kind of a cool name. It has like a neat ring to it. And I'm pretty sure Ferrus Manus died famously at one of the most well-known battles of the Horus Heresy, known as the Drop Site Massacre, if I remember correctly, where a bunch of the loyal Space Marine chapters were tricked into deploying to the surface of a planet, and then they were wiped out by a bunch of the Chaos Space Marine forces working together. I think that's where Ferrus Manus met his end, and he is one of the definitely dead Primarchs. So that is sad if you're not ever going to see your Primarch return or get a model that you're going to be able to play on the tabletop. But I do think Iron Hands are a very cool chapter, and I would totally respect anyone who chose them as their Space Marine chapter of choice. And their play style tends to lend to playing a lot of vehicles. The penchant of the Iron Hands to prefer robot over flesh kind of carries on to them using a lot of vehicles as part of their methods of warfare. And Iron Hands have done very well in tournament play in some editions because their vehicles would be tougher than any other Space Marine chapter's version of the same vehicle, either ignoring wounds or fighting more effectively. So that's pretty cool that they are a Space Marine chapter that specializes in using vehicles, and they look cool in their black armor and with their robotic arms and legs and that kind of stuff. And I think they probably also tend to favor heavy weapons. I haven't played against Iron Hands, I haven't played them, so I don't know their rules super well, but that's kind of my impression. Realized I forgot to put some Screamer Pink on this character's face. I think I'll do that next. I also want to paint this little sword scabbard here, and I'll be giving it like a little gold pommel at the bottom, or whatever you call the butt of the scabbard, the bottom of it there. So the Iron Hands are the 10th Legion, which means we're halfway through the original 20 founding legions. Although I think we're over halfway through the ones that are still loyal. I'm also thinking I want to use black for the sort of breathing apparatus on this guy's chest. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see that. I definitely want to paint this little part black, like a tube going down to his belt. He has a belt, and I'll probably do the buckle gold and the belt itself brown. Maybe I'll go silver on this breath mask. Then what about his actual mask? It also has a tube, so let's paint that black. Maybe I'll just do the whole mask black, or black with a silver trim would be good. Kind of hard to get my brush in there. Alright, not too bad. Guess good to have that done before I come in and do the flesh on the face. Seems like he's also got some goggles or something, or headband. What is that? Goggles, but they're kind of raised up. Let's do those black as well. I'll give it a go with this brush. I need a little more paint. So the 10th Legion, the Iron Hands, what is their home planet? I actually don't know. Wow, were they originally called, I'm looking at a wiki here, were they originally called the Stormwalkers when they were a legion before they became a chapter? I hadn't heard that. I also have this little wrapping on the handle of his banner. I have to decide what color to paint that. Alright, going black on his goggles. Or her goggles. So the 11th Legion, again, is one of the ones that's missing, that we know basically nothing about. One of the 2 lost legions. So we'll move right along. To the 12th Legion, which would be the World Eaters. Favorite legion of Mini Wargamer Dave, I believe. So the World Eaters are a Chaos Warband, and one of the Traitor Legions, or Treacher Legions as they used to be called. And they're sort of the most ferocious, close combat oriented of the Chaos Space Marine Legions, worshippers of the Chaos God of War, Khorne, which is cool. I believe they have white armor originally, and now it's red, or is it still white? I'm not sure. But they're one of the cooler Chaos Legion, or Chaos Warbands, in my opinion, or Treacher Legions. But we're not really talking about them today, so we're going to move on to the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines. And I think we just have 3 loyal legions left to cover. I'm going to go ahead and get the base coat on this character's head. So the Ultramarines, often called the poster boys of the Space Marines. Their Primarch is got a name that people can never agree on how it's pronounced. I think it's Robate Guilliman. Or maybe it's Robute Guilliman. Robate? Robute? R-O-B-U-T-E. And when people are making fun of him, they call him Robot Girly Man. Because they also don't know how to say his name. And Robate, I think that's why everyone calls him Guilliman, because we can pretty much agree on how that's pronounced. And he is unique among the Primarchs in that he has already returned to the world of Warhammer 40,000. And I had already been playing Warhammer a long time when he finally returned. And it was... he returned kind of along with the Primaris Space Marines. which were the newer, bigger Space Marines. And he is involved in their creation, according to the lore, where supposedly Robotay, or Guilliman himself, was the one who ordered Belisarius Cawl, the great inventor, to create a bigger, stronger Space Marine, I assume to fight against the forces of chaos after the heresy. So Cawl was given a huge supply of recruited initiate Space Marines to experiment on, and he placed them in suspended animation or cryosleep, and for 10,000 years he experimented on them using the DNA of the original Primarchs. He created the Primaris Space Marines to be an improvement on the work of the Emperor, who had created the Space Marines. Now, I'm not insulted by the idea that Cawl made better Space Marines than the Emperor himself, because I believe if he had wanted to, the Emperor could have created the Primaris Space Marines, and he didn't want to, because the Emperor did create a bigger, stronger kind of Space Marine, which were his Custodes, in charge of defending his own person and the Imperial Palace on Terra. And after the Emperor's battle with Horus, he was mortally wounded, and the Custodes became his custodian guard, watching over him on his golden throne as he gradually wasted away into the corpse Emperor we know and love today. So, I think of the Primaris Space Marines being something in between a regular Space Marine and a Custodes. And so I wouldn't say they are better than what the Emperor could have created. They're just a different, bigger, stronger kind of Space Marine. Alright, well, we're coming along. I've got a very difficult to reach part of the face to paint now. We'll just give it a go. Slip the brush in there and slap some paint on it. And maybe I can come in from this side too. We'll have to do a little touch up there. It's kind of hard to see what I'm looking at, but yeah, one of the hard to reach parts of the model is that left side of his face. Well, he's coming along. I do have some touch up to do down here by the bottom of the staff and on the arm. So let's do that touch up now, I think. Starting with white because I want to give it the most time to dry. So the Ultramarines, their armor is blue, or ultramarine, if you will. And they, instead of having one home planet, they have a whole sector of space, which is their home, called Ultramar. And it's basically governed and ruled and protected by the Ultramarine Space Marines. And Ultramar is considered one of the nicest places to live in the Imperium, partly because the Ultramarines themselves are very, well, nice as far as Space Marines go. They believe in the human rights of their subjects, as far as I'm aware. And the worlds of Ultramar generally have like pretty high technology and are probably a lot like modern day Earth, with democracies and governments and maybe even televisions and radio shows and all that kind of stuff. So as far as Space Marines go, they're pretty good at what they do, in that they're not just protecting civilians, but providing them a nice quality of life by doing so as well. And they're very much sort of good guy Space Marines, as far as you get that in the Warhammer universe. And it's very cool that they have an actual Primarch character who you can field on the table. The rules for running Guilliman in a game of Warhammer 40k are pretty good, I think. He gives some great advantages to the Space Marines he's fighting alongside. And in the lore, after being awoken from his coma or stasis, Guilliman has since become, I think, like Lord Regent of the Imperium, and he's running half of it, and the half that he can't really get to on the other side of the Cicatrix Maledictum, he's placed, I believe, Dante of the Blood Angels, that's the current Blood Angels chapter master, in command of that part. So pretty cool that the Ultramarines Primarch is not just alive and a model you can play on the table, but he's also pretty much like ruler of the Imperium. There is a high council of the High Lords of Terra, something like that, who make decisions, but I'm not sure if he's above them or directly under them, but he's definitely the most important one person in the Imperium, I would say. Alright, I'm going to paint a little bit of gold on the handle of this guy's dagger. And again, we're trying to access a very difficult to reach part of the model. I'm going to go for my smallest brush and try and get a lot of paint on it so I can just kind of dab it on. Let's see if I can give you guys an angle that shows you what I'm doing here. So if you're looking to play the good guys of the Warhammer universe, consider the Ultramarines. They're pretty cool looking with their blue armor and their white Ultra symbol, and usually gold trim. Actually, I think only the second company wears gold trim, if I remember right. They have like different trim colors for each company that are kind of standard. In the Codex Astartes, the rule book that Space Marines follow, which was actually written and composed by Guilliman himself after the Horus Heresy. So that whole thing about splitting the Space Marine legions into chapters of 1,000 Marines, that comes from a book called the Codex Astartes that was written by Guilliman. So pretty cool that the leader of the Ultramarines is also the one who all the other Space Marine chapters kind of listen to. Although it's funny then when Guilliman doesn't follow the Codex Astartes himself. For instance, the new Primaris Space Marines have a somewhat different organization than was spelled out in the Codex. But I guess they explain that by saying that when he woke up from his slumber, Guilliman made some revisions to the Codex, or, you know, saw that people were treating it like, you know, or at least some Space Marine chapters were following it to the letter when it was maybe supposed to be more like a suggestion or something. I don't exactly know. Alright, going to be painting the tank tread that's kind of on the base here. It's just some decoration I stuck on the base. Actually, the reason I put it there was because when I made this model, he was leaning forward too much. I wanted the banner kind of straight up and down, and it was definitely at a forward angle. And in order to tilt the model backwards, it just made sense to stick something under his front foot that he's stepping up onto, and that would change the angle of the model. So that's how this tank tread came to be on the base and why he's stepping up on it. I'm happy with the angle he ended up at. Probably just going to paint this black. I might come back and add some silver dry brush or something to it. I do have a little bit of a time limit tonight. Normally my stream just goes till about 9:30 at the latest, but I have to make sure I'm done at least by 11 tonight, because that's when my overnight shift is going to start. Watching a hotel desk. Nice easy job. Kind of fun. Alright, can't really see in there, but I'll dab some black paint. Alright, that's the tank tread done. Anything else I need to hit with black? Oh, I forgot to put gold on the bottom of his dagger. Let's switch colors real quick. And then we'll probably move on to the highlight on the skin tones. So playing Ultramarines is really cool because you get to use Guilliman. They have some great flexible tactics. Like I believe in the current edition they're able to fall back out of close combat and then turn around and shoot in the same turn, which is a very strong ability. And in general, they're supposed to be sort of like masters of tactical warfare, which kind of makes sense if their Primarch wrote the book on Space Marine tactics. All right. Maybe, do we want to go gold on that? No, I said I'd do it silver, and I stand by that. So just going to put some silver paint on his little breath mask here. Might have to go get a cup of water in a bit. I'm getting a little bit hoarse here. Okay, here we are. So Ultramarines, I feel like you can't really go wrong playing Ultramarines. The only thing, I guess a couple things. One is that people might complain you're sort of like the poster boys. And then the other thing is Ultramarines paint their armor blue and their elite troops paint their helmets white. And a bunch of little tiny Space Marines on a table who are all about an inch high, who are blue with white hats, led people to nickname them Smurfs. Of course, most kids today probably don't know the Smurfs. It was a cartoon that was popular back in the 80s about a bunch of tiny blue elves, I guess, who wore white hats, and they all dressed the same. So, you know, I guess you aren't going to hear that nickname as much anymore, as that show's kind of like in the past as far as I know. But yeah, people might tease you for playing the Smurfs if you play Ultramarines, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. You get so much love from Games Workshop. You kind of feel like you're playing their favorite Space Marine chapters sometimes, so you'll have a good time playing Ultramarines. And they're always likely to have lots of cool characters to choose from, and good strong game rules, no matter what codex or edition you play. Painted a little skull on his base there. It's coming along. Let's zoom out a bit. And I think maybe we'll do some pink on his skin and then come hit that banner with a brighter yellow. And hoping we can get to some ink washes pretty soon after that. This guy's definitely got a lot of details that have me switching colors and taking a while to paint him. But I'm having fun and enjoying this topic. As you can tell, I've absorbed a lot of information about the Space Marine chapters over the years. Since about 1995, when I was first introduced to Space Marines. Probably the first ever Space Marines I saw, figurines I saw painted up, were Crimson Fists. And they are not one of the founding Space Marine chapters, but they're one of the two successor chapters I wanted to bring up and just mention. And so I will talk about them briefly at the end. But we have a couple other first founding Space Marine chapters to talk about. And I believe the two that are left are the Salamanders and the Raven Guard. But we'll continue to go numerically through the legions and just mention the Chaos ones in passing. The 14th Legion was the Death Guard, led by Mortarion, who is a Primarch who's still alive. He is turned into a Demon Prince, and you can field him as part of a Chaos Space Marine army. And then the 15th Legion was the Thousand Sons, and their Primarch, Magnus the Red, is also a Demon Primarch who you can play in the game now. And they are another Chaos warband. Alright, let's mix that pink. And I think I might want to do this with my small layer brush, which is pretty much the finest brush I use for details. Mixing up a pink with White Scar, right? Yeah, White Scar and Screamer Pink. This is going to be my highlight color for the skin. Thousand Sons are cool. They're kind of like a psychic-focused Chaos Space Marine faction. And they have real enmity with the Space Wolves, who were sent to destroy their world. And they're kind of cursed Space Marine Legion. They were sort of turned to evil as a last resort, supposedly. And they have kind of an Egyptian theme to their style. Yeah, I do have to go get a cup of water. Pardon me just a moment. Moving on, the 16th Legion, I'm pretty sure, yeah, they were called the Luna Wolves, and they became the Sons of Horus, and after the heresy, I believe they became the Black Legion, unless I'm mistaken. And they were led by Horus himself, the arch traitor, who led the rebellion or civil war against the Emperor. And Horus apparently was sort of tricked into turning against the Emperor by the Chaos Gods, but they did it by revealing to him the Emperor's plan to destroy his own Space Marine legions once they had finished conquering the galaxy. And so it's kind of understandable why he would turn against him. Moving on though, looking for loyalists. The 17th Legion was the Word Bearers, another Chaos warband that turned against the Imperium during the heresy. And now the 18th. We're finally back to another loyalist chapter. The 18th Legion was the Salamanders. Now the Salamanders chapter. And they are best known for their Marines having like a dark black, gray-black skin, which was a trait of their Primarch, which affects the Marines who get his DNA as part of their transformation. And, oh, I think I have a loose hair on my brush. I'm going to try and pull it out. And the Salamanders are also known for being kind of the most good and noble of the Space Marines. And people really do call them like the good guy Marines, pretty much. and they will always try to protect Imperial civilians whenever possible, even at the cost of Space Marine Battle Brothers. And they're also known for using flame weapons and melta weapons, basically anything super high heat. They have used like dragon imagery and heraldry, and it goes along with that. Salamanders paint their armor green. I think it's a slightly brighter green than the Dark Angels, which is about the only way to tell them apart at a glance. Alright, getting most of the highlight done here. And the Salamanders, I guess, are a chapter I don't know a huge amount about, besides what I've said so far. Their Primarch, Vulcan, is believed to be an immortal who will resurrect if he's killed, I believe. I don't know if he exactly resurrects or gets reborn or what, but supposedly Vulcan lives. Vulcan lives is kind of their motto, I believe. And they have kind of a ongoing quest among the Salamanders to track down Vulcan's weapons and armor, I believe, which are sort of like scattered around the galaxy. And I think they also know that he's alive and they're trying to find him, something like that, trying to track down their Primarch. So Vulcan would be another one of the lost Primarchs who we might see return to the game of 40K someday. And I know that there's, I think the chapter master of the Salamanders carries his some of his weapons and armor in battle, which is pretty cool. I did forget to paint this guy's belt. I'm just going to do that now in like a brown. I think I'm going to use my XV88 brown and a small brush because it's a pretty small detail. Oh, didn't get enough paint. I'm actually running out of paint here. Or am I? It's just kind of a thick paint that's hard to get at, I guess. Not something you want to be digging out with your finest brush. Alright, bump my camera. There we go. So, I think Salamanders are pretty cool, especially that they use flamer and melta weapons. Generally, melta weapons are very effective in the game, so playing as a faction that has an advantage when using them is pretty nice in terms of the game rules. Also cool to be playing Space Marines who are kind of like good guys. Pretty rare in 40K to have something like that. Hey, are we base coated? Just about. I think let's come hit that banner, and might want to do a little more, another, maybe a lighter gold dry brush on the icon at the top. Let's do that. Well, let's do the yellow first. Yellow probably wants some time to dry. So now we're going to Flash Gets Yellow. It's not terrible paint, but you know, it's better than some of the yellows I've used back in the day, but it still doesn't have excellent coverage. I don't know if you can see that, but already you can see it looks kind of streaky and you can kind of see through it. It's not super opaque. And that's why I wanted to have a good base of Averland Sunset down before I use this yellow. But using the two of them together, I feel like does give good results. And I'm pretty happy with how it's starting to go on. So I think that's about everything I know about the Salamanders. So let's move on to the last of the first founding legions. Or I guess we'll mention yeah, the next one. The next and the last of the Loyalists is the Raven Guard, the stealthy Space Marines. So they, I think they come from a night world, like a world that's in perpetual darkness or something like that. And their Space Marines are usually have like a pale skin or like a totally white skin or something like that, like albinos. And their Primarch is named Corvus Corax. And I actually don't know if he's living or dead. Is Corvus Corax alive? I think his name means something like crow in Latin. And I don't know a ton about him. Except his legion is known for their stealth tactics, infiltration, sniper weapons, and black armor, which is all very cool. Their chapter badge is like a white bird on black armor, which white chapter badge is not very stealthy. I don't totally get that, but Iron Hands and Raven Guard are both black armor with a white badge, which is kind of interesting that you have two Space Marine chapters with such similar look. I really don't know that much about Raven Guard. I'm already at about the limit of what I know. They do tend to use a lot of jump troops with lightning claws, which is pretty much unheard of among the other chapters. Not something you see very often. And I think the idea is kind of like a flying bird with talons is kind of what they're going for with that. Generally on the table, they have some kind of stealth advantages, ability to infiltrate troops into the middle of the battlefield during the game, harder to hit at range and cover, that kind of thing. They tend to lurk in the shadows and fight a kind of guerrilla warfare, I think. And that would be the last of the Loyalist founding chapters, first founding chapters. But there are two other Space Marine chapters that are right up there in terms of fame and reputation and support from Games Workshop as the founding chapters. So I'll just mention them in this same episode, and then I'll talk about rare Space Marine chapters when I come back to this topic. So the other two that you see pretty commonly, which are, I think, second founding chapters, meaning they were created immediately after the Horus Heresy, are the Black Templars and the Crimson Fists. And both of them are successor chapters of the Imperial Fists, I'm pretty sure. Definitely Black Templar, and yeah, Crimson Fists as well. So the Black Templars are an Imperial Fist successor chapter who have black armor with white trim, and they're kind of known for being going on crusades a lot, which is kind of interesting. And they hate psychers and abhumans, meaning, you know, mutated humans. And they are all about purging the psyker and the heretic and the unclean kind of thing. And they are pretty cool, pretty classy Space Marine chapter that for a long time didn't get much rules support from Games Workshop, but that's changed recently. I would say right now they just had, I think they just had a codex come out and like a battle box, and They now have a unique kind of model, which is like a neophyte who fights. It's like kind of like a scout marine who fights alongside regular battle brothers. So they are fun in that they have these mixed squads that have initiates and veterans fighting alongside each other in kind of a mixed group. And they're also a very popular chapter. Oh, I see he's got some straps on his side of his leg here that I think I'm going to do those in brown too, like his belt. Where did I put my small brush? Here it is. So the Black Templars, I would say that's about all there is to them that I wanted to mention. But there's also the Crimson Fists, and they are kind of known for fighting orcs. I think that there was like a famous story in the lore about how they were fighting campaigns against the orcs, and they had to fight some last stand type battles where almost the entire chapter was wiped out. And they had to rebuild from almost nobody. And probably that goes back to the awesome artwork on the cover of the second edition rulebook of Warhammer. It had it depicted a bunch of Crimson Fists firing their weapons, making like a last stand, a bunch of Marines wounded, you know, shooting one-handed as they have their, you know, mortal wounds, preventing them from fighting at full capacity, but never giving up. And they have kind of like a dark blue armor, and they paint their gloves red. And I think they look pretty dang cool. And it's neat that they have like a favored enemy of orcs. Orcs are always fun to play against. And just having a favorite enemy is always neat. I suppose the Ultramarines have kind of a favorite enemy of Tyranids. There's a storyline where the Tyranids invaded their sector of Ultramar, and they had to fight some incredibly difficult battles to try and save their save Ultramar. Okay, I'm going to do some gold highlights on the icon using this Auric Armor Gold. It's very shiny, bright gold. I hope I've got it shaken enough. And I just kind of want to come hit some of these top surfaces with this. Nothing too careful here. Just trying to give the gold a little extra shine. And that's got to be pretty close to done with base coat. I probably should have done a little more white, second coat of white on the tusks here on his icon. Well, we're over 2 hours. This model's taken a while. It's a complicated one. And I haven't even started the ink washes yet. But we're almost there. Once you get to the ink wash stage, it goes pretty quick. But you want to have all your base coats done pretty carefully before you start to slap ink on it. Okay, I think we are looking pretty good. That's about what I had in mind. I think I'll leave to the very last thing to paint black around the bottom of his base. Alright, so where do I want to do the ink wash first? I'm thinking probably on his clothing or else on his skin. Probably skin would be the best to do first because it's a little bit more like smaller area, so I'm less likely to have it get all over the place. So we're using a Karaberg Crimson ink wash here, or shade paint as Games Workshop calls it. And this is going to bring out the details for us. I think I'll skip those little cutouts in his armor because they're so small. I don't really want to mess up the detail I've already painted there. It's good for bringing out the details on his face and also kind of hiding the slight mess ups around the edge. And we just got to do this one hand, and then I think we're good on this color. It's nice to see how it brings out all the details in the model. Alright, maybe I will do his elbows, and maybe I'll try to drip a little bit in there. Okay. Well, that is the famous Space Marine chapters covered. See if I can remember them all now. We got Dark Angels, White Scars, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, Raven Guard, Salamanders, Crimson Fists, and Black Templars. Did I leave one out there? Let's just review real quick. I think that was all of them. Let me think for a second if there's any others that are super famous like those that it would be worth mentioning. I suppose I'll just in passing talk about Grey Knights, and I already kind of mentioned Custodes, so don't really need to go into them anymore. I'm going to put a Seraphim Sepia wash on the banner. This is a kind of a light reddish brown wash that's I'm going to use just to kind of make the banner look a bit dirty. You can see it's brown there, but I think it looks nice on yellow, and as I spread it out more it will be a little less intense. Yeah, something like that. I like how that looks. Kind of make it look like it has a couple dirty spots on it. Nothing stays clean in the 41st millennium, except some Space Marine armor. Maybe Ultramarines do. I kind of mentioned how Space Marine players will kind of tease each other about this or that, about the chapter that they picked. And that's kind of, you know, just the kind of good-natured fun that some people like to have, as far as having something to kind of tease each other about. I would do the ink wash on these tusks, but I just painted white on them, and you don't want to hit white with any other paint until it's very dry, so I'm just going to hold off a bit. And I'm seeing the ink is really, or the shade is really pooling on this banner, so I just want to spread it out a bit to keep it from developing into a big pool as it dries. And I'm probably going to try to keep the model also oriented this way so that the paint doesn't all pool at the bottom of the banner. That is a problem with shades, is they do tend to pool, so you want to make sure that you've got the paint spread out enough and not laid on too thick. I do want to use the same shade color, the Seraphim Sepia, on his claws, but I don't want to touch the other ink wash yet till it's a little more dry. I do want to use it also on the arms, but same problem. So I'm going to go ahead and put this ink aside for now. And we're going to do some Agrax Earthshade, my favorite ink wash color. This is a nice, dirty, warm brown shade that will look good on this gray clothing and really dirty it up. Also looks great on gold, so I can be pretty indiscriminate with applying it here. And it looks great on silver, so really I can put it everywhere on his apparel. So what Space Marine chapter should you play? I wonder if those descriptions would give someone enough to base their decision on. Helps to really see the models and decide which you like the look of the best, I think. That's usually how people decide which one they want to play. Just kind of trying to move the model around so that the banner doesn't pool, like I was saying. Well, here you can kind of see the effect of the Agrax Earthshade on gray. Turns it into this sort of dirty, warm gray, which is what I was going for. And I'm getting a little heavy-handed with this wash, like I tend to do. Gotta cool it a little bit. Using it also anywhere that there's gold, including this icon up at the top. We'll hit that when we're done with the clothing. Moving on to his upper torso now. Like I said, I chose Dark Angels, and I chose them basically based on the color of their armor. And I like to just kind of make a choice and stick to it, and then have a little bit of pride or esprit de corps in my choice, and just kind of be loyal to it. Maybe the fact that I am kind of loyal is why I like the Dark Angels. Right. I also like that they're sort of cold and untrusting. Well, since we didn't paint it, I guess the cloth wrapped around this banner is going to be dark gray. Just kind of how it ended up being. Sometimes you forget to paint something and then you decide, oh, I'm just kind of fine with it being that color that it is. Small detail. I could always come back and hit it with a color later. But since we're already doing washes, I don't want to go back to base coating. Pretty happy with how everything's looking so far. We're getting some pooling on the banner, like I was worried about. And also down here, we're getting some pooling in his crevices of his clothing. A little bit is okay, but I don't want super obvious pools of shade because they'll also be shiny. Had that problem on some of the other models I painted on stream. And it is something I'm prone to because I'm heavy-handed with my washes. Whoops, dropped my model. Always drop my model when I'm painting shades. That's the worst. Maybe it's because I'm trying not to get the shade all over my fingers. Okay, let's do the top of the icon here. Doesn't Agrax look good on gold? Just gives it that kind of little bit of dirty look that kind of brings out the details in the model. And we'll use it on the silver too here for now. Might come back and also wash the silver with a black wash, Nuln Oil, but we'll get to that. Haven't decided. That actually looks pretty good just with the Agrax Earthshade on there. Yeah, looking good. So, should you pick one of the main Space Marine chapters or not? That's another question. I did, and I think one of the cool things about picking a first founding Space Marine chapter is that you get to find lots of references in the game lore to the faction that you play. And additionally, you tend to get lots of rule support. Special characters, codex that's specifically for your army, that kind of thing. So there's definitely some advantages to picking one of the first founding chapters. If you pick one of the slightly more rare ones, like I would say Raven Guard, White Scars, Salamanders, or Iron Hands, did I say them twice? If you pick one of those more rare ones, you're still going to be pretty unique in your gaming club, probably. And it's not the worst thing if you and someone else both play White Scars. I mean, you could team up and have a battle where, you know, you each play 1,000 points in a 2,000 point game. And it's always cool when you get to do something like that. Have yourself and someone else teaming up and have your armies painted like they're part of a cohesive force. So that's more common, that you'll have someone you can you know, team up with for a Dark Angels team up or something like that, if you do pick one of the first founding chapters. But there are a lot of other chapters that are still pretty well known among the players of the game besides the first founding chapters. The lore and background talks about multiple foundings. You know, the first founding, the second founding chapters are also very well known. There's a famous like cursed 13th founding where a bunch of the chapters that were created then had like bad genetic defects, including the Black Dragons, who I'll mention in my next podcast, or I mean in my next stream. So just because these are sort of the most well-known doesn't mean they're the only ones that people know or the only ones you're going to see. And besides the first founding chapters and the successor chapters, plenty of players create their own original Space Marine chapter. Make up a name, make up a color scheme, and it's a time-honored tradition in 40K. And if you want to go that route, you should. There's nothing, you know, no good reason not to. These days, if you have your own custom chapter that you create, you have a pretty robust and powerful set of options for creating their own chapter traits of how they fight and that kind of thing. So it's not like you're going to be at a disadvantage compared to people who paint the first founding chapters. And you can really look for one that has the appearance that you're after. Like if you want to paint your Space Marines silver, you could find a lot of options among successor chapters that have the colors that you're looking for. And if you don't, or if you can't, you just make up your own. That's totally cool. Well, what do I need to do next? I'm thinking a Seraphim Sepia wash on the skull and the white bits. And we're getting pretty close to done with this guy. Or at least done enough that I'll be happy with him. Oh, I could do a black wash on his gun. I think it's time for that. So for that I'm going to use Nuln Oil, the famous black wash that everybody's always spilling. I think that, you know, spilling Nuln Oil wash is just a trope because it's the most common wash that people own and use. Pretty much no matter what faction you play, you're going to have some silver bits, and usually Nuln Oil is the wash of choice for anything metallic like gold or silver. And so pretty much everybody uses it and has a pot of it, and these shade pots are kind of tall and tippy, and especially when they're full of paint, it's quite easy to knock them over while you're painting. And the way that the lids kind of shut on their own and you keep having to open the lid up and to get at the paint doesn't help. It seems to me that Games Workshop definitely could have invented a shade pot that doesn't tip over, and some people kind of joke that it's like intentional that they designed them this way so that you'll spill your paint and have to go buy more. But some people get so mad about it that they straight up switch to a different brand of paint that isn't as prone to that kind of problem. So maybe it does sometimes backfire. All right, well, there's the gun ink washed. I'll zoom in so you guys can see how much better it looks now with a little bit of shading on it. There is some shade pooled on the top of the barrel, and that's not where I want shadows, so I'll just suck that up with my brush. Got a little bit on his hand too, just to kind of add some definition and a part of the model that you're not really going to see too clearly. All right, moving on to the Seraphim Sepia. And I think that might be almost the end of painting this model. We'll have to do the black rim on the base, and then we might be done. Took a little longer than my last few. It's already 9:30, and we're still not quite finished. So here's the Seraphim Sepia on the sort of tusks up here, or whatever they are. And I think it works great on a white base coat to just very easily create the impression of like a sort of, you know, a little bit of plaque or something around the base of the bone. There's the back. And I'm trying to stay off the tip because I want it to kind of fade from brown to white is kind of the look I'm going for. There, like that. I'm happy with that. Front and back. All right. Let's do the same thing on his fingernails. Just a little Seraphim Sepia kind of around the base of his nails. And if the brush has a ton of this paint on it, it's not a problem. It just kind of sticks to the area where the crevices are at the top of the nail. That's looking good. All right, he's got a glove on that hand. And oh, the skull. So here we're just going to slap some Seraphim Sepia on this skull to bring out the details a little bit, make it look kind of dirty and sun-bleached bone kind of look. Just like that. Didn't make a big difference. I could probably use Agrax Earthshade here instead. There's a little more. I like how that looks. Yeah, there we go. All right, I think the last thing to do is gonna be to paint the black around his base, and we're done, or at least done enough. Can always come back and add more details, more highlights, fix any problems I see later. I don't know if I will do that, but just because I'm calling a model done doesn't mean I can't come back and work on it a little more if I need to. So here we're just doing the old black on rim on the base, something I think makes the model look cool. Of course, you don't have to do this, or you could use a different color. I have seen people paint like a squad color here. So they'll have a squad where everybody has a red rim on their base, and then a squad where everyone has a green rim on the base, and they use it to just tell the squads apart. I think that's an interesting idea. Trying to find a good place to hold the model from. I think I'm going to go for the top of the head and the bottom of the base, so I can paint this all the way around, because normally this is where I'm holding the model from. I did pick up some more black paint at the hobby shop the other day, because I'm getting pretty low. It's like one paint I use on pretty much every model, at least to do the base. All right, just about done. Okay, I think I'm calling that good. I will go ahead and play the before video, and I'll set up the model on a spinner so you can see the finished result. So here was the before. There we go. Pardon me a second while I get things set up for the next shot. Getting out my little model spinner. Fun Amazon purchase. Put the mini on it. Making sure I got a good camera shot. You guys really aren't missing anything here, except out of focus blurry models moving around like crazy. Alright, there we go. Okay, let's switch over. So here is the finished result. And you can see the Genestealer Cult's Acolyte Icon Ward with his icon of the Great Devourer. And I did not end up doing freehand on the banner of the symbol. This actually matches some of my other models where I think I just have a yellow banner. Or maybe I did paint the Great Devourer in white in freehand. I may come back and do that on my own time maybe. But I'm happy with how he came out. Looking forward to putting this guy on the table. He's going to give some kind of a buff aura to the troops around him. And who knows, maybe he'll do something else cool in the new codex that's coming out, I think later this month or in January. Thanks for watching the stream, and hope to see you guys next time. I'll be painting Warhammer or some other kind of minis Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 7 p.m. West Coast US time. And I will be uploading the videos from Twitch onto YouTube so you can watch them anytime. So thank you. I'm Christopher, and see you next time.